Hypocrisy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome. Oh my God. Welcome to Law Splaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. I don't know why you guys keep saying late. It still says 11:59. I'm early. Why you do this to me? Why are you doing this? Anyway, how you doing, guys? Welcome. Oh yeah, I'm wearing this shirt. I just got back from the men's meeting. Yeah. It's great. I definitely didn't do it on purpose just to piss people off. That is not what happened. How dare you put that on me? Anyway, what's up, guys? Man, my throat is a disaster today, which is fun, which is also why I canceled the show last night, hoping that it was just a temporary thing. You might be able to hear it in my voice. You might not. But it's, you know, I don't know. I hear it. I feel it with every fucking word. Anyway, we're going to get right into the stream today. We're probably going to aim for 2 to 2.5 hours. I do have some stuff to do with the family today. We're going to take the kids out and go have a good time. It'll be awesome. But that starts kind of when I'm done with the show. So let's get to it. We're going to talk about Trump. The E.G. and Carroll defamation lawsuit came down yesterday. The jury deliberating very, very quickly to determine that Trump owes infinity bajillion dollars to a woman who is not worth that much money. And then on top of that, a punitive damage award, which is something like 4 times the compensatory damage award. So she's definitely not worth that as well. We'll talk about it a little bit and how these awards against guys like Trump, Alex Jones, and everyone else are getting out of fucking hand. They are getting out of hand. It is unreal how much they're awarding people when you understand what compensatory damages are supposed to be. All right. So we'll talk about that as we get going. There's some more Trump stuff. I have a couple Trump. Oh, geez, this is going to be a long fucking day. I just get one of these things right now. It's going to be a long day for me as this voice gets progressively more wrecked. Okay, so other than that, I do have more Trump stuff, like I said. Jesus. We've got updates somewhere. Where the hell? What do we got? We've got, the Supreme Court is obviously being urged to find Trump ineligible because Colorado said so, which is great. And I think that might be the only other Trump case we're talking about today. So that's good. Not too much Trump. And then we've got Texas. Texas is developing still. It keeps going. And now legal experts are weighing in. So we've got legal experts saying that Governor Greg Abbott is doing the exact right thing. Other legal experts are saying Greg Abbott is defying the Supreme Court, which is absolutely not true. There is no possible way for Greg Abbott to defy the Supreme Court's order because the Supreme Court's order doesn't demand he do anything. So we'll talk about that. And then we've got these idiots weighing in on federal supremacy and other ideas like that. And of course, the media is breathlessly reporting how Greg Abbott is exploiting a loophole in the Supreme Court's order to do this, because the media doesn't know what a loophole is. It just asserts that a loophole exists when what they really mean is that someone is doing what they're able to do under the law. Just like with taxes, rich people taxes, they're like, there's a loophole that lets, no, it's not a loophole. It's just a deduction, bro. Like they're all over the place. But we will talk about that. Then there's I thought this is a throwaway topic and I was going to like cover it the other day. Kat Von D is a tattoo artist, I guess, like a celebrity tattoo artist, and she tattooed a picture of Miles Davis on someone for free years ago, and then threw a couple of those like posts on her Instagram or something, pictures of it. And the original artist who who took the photo of Miles Davis, the reference photo that she used for her sketches and to create this work, He sued her over the tattoo. Tattoos have a very complicated copyright sort of issue. It's weird. The tattoo artist actually owns the copyright to tattoos that they put on people unless they sign a release to the copyright. So if you monetize like a tattoo that a tattoo artist put on you, they can like take down your stuff. It's weird, but they do own that. But this wasn't about that. This was about whether the original photographer's copyrights were infringed or whether this was a new work that was transformative and sufficiently changed for fair use purposes. Now, the reason I said I thought that's just kind of like a little interesting blurb about tattoos that doesn't come up very often. But it turns out it's been trending as like one of the top searches. Well, at least what my phone tells me for days. Like it's like top searches on Google. And this stupid Kat Von D tattoo story. Apparently people care about this shit, which is weird, man. Like I don't know. I'm always surprised at what the world like cares about. Like you care about some like lady who put ink on someone and then like some photographer tried to get he tried to like just make some money off of it. Like no, it's mine. The other thing I found interesting is like details of how each of them composed their work, which are kind of laid into the story. So we'll talk about that. Spoiler alert, Kat Von D, the tattoo artist, won. It was a jury verdict. It was returned in 3 hours. I think it was only like a day or two of testimony. There's not much testimony to have, right? Like this is what I did and she copied it. So that happened. That's a real thing that just happened. And it's how the law works. It's just a fair use question. And the jury said, yeah, fair use. So that's great. So we'll talk about that as we go. Pretty cool. Then we got, there's this weird story about a Japanese, I think it's Miss Nippon. Come on, Japan. Can you not be so fucking degenerate every time? Miss Japan or something like that was won by a Ukrainian born naturalized Japanese citizen. So she is Japanese. She's 26 years old, and they found, well, as often happens when like tall Eastern European women enter a country, that country determines that they are, gorgeous. I don't know what it is about countries that do that, but so she wins Miss Japan, and now Japan is borderline ethno state in a lot of ways. Like they're just very, very pro-Japanese. Like they really like their own team, right? And so this has caused controversy because this is supposed to be the contest to represent the greatest beauty in all of Japan. And there you go. Now it's a chick who's Japanese, right? Like she's a naturalized citizen since she was 5, so like 21 years, I think now. But she's now the most beautiful Japanese woman. She is very much white. So it's pretty cool. We'll take a look at that. I just thought it was a funny story. It's a good way to talk about like how all this stuff works into everything and how different cultures treat different stuff. And we may get to some other topics. There's an insurance company suing the city of Minneapolis, which is funny because of the George Floyd riots. Finally, they're like, you guys didn't do anything. You just stood by and let everything get trashed. Now we have to compensate for it. So we have that story as well. There's a Texas citizen journalist who had a wrongful arrest lawsuit. The police arrested this journalist for releasing private government information that they obtained surreptitiously, which is weird because journalists do actually get to do that. That's one of the protections for journalists is that they have the ability to obtain information so long as they don't participate in or induce the illegal obtaining of the information. They have a shield to release private government information typically. Now this isn't about the person being charged. Like they're not fighting a crime, right? They were arrested, which an arrest in and of itself is an intimidation tactic that the government can use to kind of tell you what you did wrong, humiliate you, harm you, depending on what things you miss while being arrested, et cetera, et cetera. And so they sued the government over wrongful arrest and lost. And then it went to the appeals court and they lost again. So pretty crazy, because if the government's justified in arresting someone over the releasing of private information where they're supposed to be protected and shielded from doing so, and this person isn't charged with a crime, so they don't get to fight the government that way, but the government's just allowed to arrest them, then the government gets to affect its purpose and intimidate journalists and chill speech. So this is a pretty crazy story as well, we may get to. And I also have one more that I don't think we're going to, God, it's awful. Disabled girl gang raped by students in Starbucks bathroom, lawsuit claims. So that was the story I picked. Now, in the meanwhile, after, kind of curating through a lot of these stories, Vince McMahon there's a lawsuit against Vince McMahon, which is apparently an absolute party to read. So I think Monday might be dedicated to Vince McMahon and that lawsuit. And I will try and find an even gayer shirt for that one, because we might need some homoerotic power for that. So here we go. We're going to hit these chats that have come in first. Oh, man, real quick. Our store finally got Milo's sweet tea lemonade. Oh, it's so fucking good. We're going to hit the chats that have come in, and then we're going to we're going to head right into this topic. Okay. Doug Murray, he sent this at 9:43 a.m. This man was on the fucking ball. He says, any Texas border militia gathering is a Fed honeypot like January 6th. Don't get caught up with thousands of NG troops on hand to arrest Americans. Spread the word. So there you go. Thank you, Doug Murray. Yeah. There is a story now where Texas is allegedly recruiting people to help, volunteers to help police the border. Man, I don't volunteer for shit. I don't volunteer for shit for reasons like that, man. That's a recipe to get shot, stabbed, arrested federally, renditioned to fucking Sweden, and made to watch Al Roker undress. Whiskey 77 says, based on that shirt, pimping ain't easy, but it sure is fun. Let's see. Richard O Team says, nice swinger shirt. Are you coming to the island? Whoa, what island? Makula Torren says, you should get Ryan Dawson on your show. He's a guy who have sent hundreds, if not thousands, of FOIA requests and has been banned on everything for revealing the info. You can find him on X at Rye Liberty. Well, I'm gonna follow him right now. That sounds interesting. But he's been banned from everything, well, except X, right? Rye Liberty. Oh my God, my throat is great. I'll follow him. I'm now following him. Israel stole the bomb and killed JFK. Ryan Dawson. What else does he have on here? Get rid of welfare and illegal immigration ends. Oh, I agree with that. They take low-paying jobs because they get paid in cash under the table and collect unemployment at the same time. Yo, yeah, that's a great point. Not to sidetrack too much, but the reason illegal immigration just keeps skyrocketing in this country is not complicated. We used to be a country that did not provide really any benefit towards cyclical migrants, they called them, because they would come and work and then leave. It wasn't that big of a deal. It was illegal, but there was kind of an understanding. Well, we decided to start offering illegal immigrants reasons to stay by giving them a bunch of money, by giving them food, by giving them access to healthcare and programs. And now it's driver's licenses. Now it's everything. If you stay here as an illegal immigrant, you get to be a de facto citizen in basically all instances, rather than being this sort of under the table person. I mean, illegal immigrants can actually pay income tax and not be deported. Did you guys know that? They're expected to. There's like, you can be an illegal immigrant and file your income taxes. You can go ahead and do that. It's fine. They won't come arrest you for it. They should, but they won't. But yeah, we've incentivized staying here. So that's the biggest problem. If there wasn't some great reason to come here, outside of things like refugees and asylees from war-torn countries, we wouldn't have giant influxes of people who want to be permanently here, willing to risk illegality and being shipped back at any moment, because there wouldn't be a reason to stay. They'd be here. It'd be difficult. They wouldn't have access to government services. They wouldn't have the ability to get a driver's license and drive around. They'd be on edge for every moment, thinking I could get picked up and sent back. And sent back in a bad way, not in the best way, not on their own terms. If that were the threat, we wouldn't see the influx that we see at the border. But all right, here we go. We've got that dog in him says, as a Popeye's biscuit eating, no drinking, chasing Black American, when should I ever talk to the cops? As my daily friendly reminder. Never talk to the cops. Don't talk to them. Don't talk to the cops. It will not help you. Don't talk to the cops. Grifty says, happy birthday, Trogdor, 21 years of burninating villagers. Dude, has it really been that long? It has. It has. I'm realizing that was 2003. Oh my God. I remember that. I remember when that came out while I was in college and not my first year in college. God, I'm so fucking old sometimes. Happy birthday, Trogdor. Trogdor, burninating the countryside. Mephisto's movie review says, how many snakes got killed to make your shirt? Not enough. Legion Shorty says, your shirt equals tell me you're gay without telling me you're gay. Well, you got to put off the right signals here, guys. Just messing with you, Nick. You're awesome. Hey, thanks, buddy. Leon's Law says, just ordered a gallon of Milo's sweet tea and lemonade. I got peer pressured. And then Makula Torin says, Ryan Dawson was banned from MySpace. It's only been unbanned because of Elon Musk and Rumble. Well, cool. Very awesome. All right. Let's get into these topics as we go. Feel free to sidetrack me in any way you choose. Where should we start? Should we start with Eugene Carroll, or should we start with where's the Colorado story? Colorado. Here we go. Long story short, this is not going to be a long one here. I don't know if we'll even go through the whole article. The Donald Trump 14th Amendment. The Donald Trump 14th Amendment debacle raised by these states who just decided, yeah, we can disqualify a president. Of course we can. Of course the state can just disqualify a presidential candidate. And by extension, must necessarily be able to disqualify a president. If you can use the 14th Amendment to disqualify a presidential candidate, when the wording of the amendment is to hold office, not to attain office, then a state must similarly have the ability to disqualify an active president, which is crazy to think that that is something that they could do. How would they do it? By what mechanism? How would they determine this to be a thing? It's an impossible standard to uphold. But yet, here they are. They've decided that federalism doesn't exist, that the president can be completely kneecapped by one or two states at their own leisure, that the states not only control the time, manner, and means of choosing their electors, but now states get to choose their candidates, which is weird because that is not actually the constitutional provision where states' rights are recognized in terms of federal elections. That they're not. They choose the means by which they choose the electors. They do not choose the candidates by which the electors will vote. And it's weird that we're just that so many people are okay with the idea that a state can do that, but that's not the way the Constitution was written. And the 14th Amendment doesn't in any way change that. There's no language of the 14th Amendment that would alter the way by which a candidate is placed onto a ballot for a state to choose electors. That's not there. And here we are with people arguing that Colorado should still win and that they can disqualify Trump. But it doesn't make any fucking sense. So here we go. Red Chief 000 says Red Diamond is greater than Milo's. I disagree. Red Diamond's okay. I prefer Milo's. James Gartner says your shirt means you're as old and hip as me. Love it, buddy. Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate that. That dog in him says you and Drex should watch 1992 space movie. No, we should not. We should not do that. So here we go. Supreme Court is urged to rule Trump is ineligible to be president again because of the January 6th riot. Now, at least it was worded as riot, not insurrection, by the headline here from the AP. Good job, guys. The Supreme Court should declare that Donald Trump is ineligible to be president again because he spearheaded the violent attack on the U.S. Capitol in an effort to overturn his 2020 election loss. Lawyers leading the fight to keep him off the ballot told the justices on Friday. So Donald Trump went from talking in an inflammatory manner to inciting a riot, to inciting an insurrection, to now spearheading the violent attack on the Capitol. Do they even know what spearheading means? The head of the spear is the thing being thrust into the bulk of the opponent. So spearheading would mean that Donald Trump was walking up front and everybody else was following those luscious Trump badonkadonk dump truck cheeks. But he wasn't. He went back inside at the White House and he just chilled. Like he's like, I don't want to stop nothing. And he doesn't have a duty to, by the way, he doesn't have a duty to like somehow call off the insurrection. This is one of my favorite things. And this is the trap. It's the trap, the rhetorical trap, the ideological trap that is laid all over the place. Is one of the criticisms of Donald Trump is that he didn't call off the January 6th rioters. And he didn't want to call off the January 6th rioters. But he can't. He can't do that. He doesn't have the power to call them off because he didn't have the power to send them in. He's not in control of this group of people who got caught up in this frenzy and then did what they did. Donald Trump didn't do that. They want him desperately to have done that. So if he takes the bait and he goes, I could have called him off, but I didn't want to call him off. I could have done it. You know, probably I would have said it. They would have stopped. It would have been fine. But I thought maybe they'd like to see the inside of the cap. If he would have done that and accepted the responsibility, by extension, he would be accepting the responsibility of sending them in the first place. But he didn't have control over that audience. Leon's Law says Pisco made this argument like a retard. Yeah, of course. Of course, Donald Trump should have done this, should have done that. But it's not in his purview to do it. Even if he gets on TV and says, hey, we want to keep it peaceful, respect the officers, and everybody go home. Even if he does that, he's still fucked. So, but I love this. But now he's spearheading it. So apparently he's up front on the melee line, just hoping his shield brother is there. Pinochet's helicopter tour says U.S. government has roughly 3 million employees. Everyone agrees the majority of those employees are corrupt, but deserve due process. Should we use black side, stateside for their renditions or Gitmo? We cannot send U.S. citizens to Gitmo, I believe. Maybe a U.S. citizen. Actually, I think we can. Okay. No, there's two cases. There's Hamdi and Hamdan that follow September 11th. And it's weird because of the timing of the cases. The Supreme Court actually rules differently in regards to a U.S. citizen who is picked up in a foreign battleground and a non-U.S. citizen picked up in a foreign battleground. The non-U.S. citizen cannot be placed in the military brig, if I remember right, but a U.S. citizen can, which is really fucking strange and backwards. But it has a lot to do with the timing of when those cases were decided. The non-U.S. citizen picked up in a foreign battle zone was decided several years later, and tensions had kind of cooled. It's one of the practical effects of the Supreme Court and how they make rulings. Legally, it doesn't seem more sound that a non-citizen would have rights that supersede a citizen, especially when they're arrested in a foreign battleground. But hey, they kind of do until they go in and correct that. So weird sort of thing. All right. Back to this, though. In a filing filled with vivid descriptions of the January 6th violence at the Capitol, the lawyers urged the justices not to flinch from doing their constitutional duty and to uphold a first-of-its-kind Colorado court decision to kick the 2024 Republican presidential frontrunner off the state's primary ballot. Nobody, not even a former president, is above the law, the lawyers wrote. This is such a fucking bogus expression that they keep relying on everywhere. It's and it's the most untrue expression you can have, because their contention is that giving Donald Trump immunity from some of these actions that they claim he took would be him being above the law. But it's not. They actually enjoy immunity from several laws. The Supreme Court justices do. Actually, the lawyers in this case, the lawyers filing this complaint, enjoy immunity from the tort of defamation. You can lie about someone completely in a complaint. You cannot be sued for what you put in a complaint. Now, there are circumstances by which you can then spread the complaint out in a manner where it's inorganic and not natural. You can do that. So if you put it in a complaint, like a civil complaint, and then you distribute the civil complaint for the purposes of spreading the defamatory remarks before filing it, you can then sort of pierce that immunity. But in general, like, these guys can say whatever they want about Trump, and they're immune from a defamation suit on it. Can't even bring it. Like, if you try to bring it, it'll be dismissed out, and you'll probably end up paying their fees. It's crazy, because all of the people involved who say this, no one is above the law, are all above the law in the way that they mean. But none of them actually are. Those are carve-outs from the law specifically for their tasks. And the president has them too. Go for Big Guy 911 says Ken Paxton should disqualify Biden as POTUS in the 14th for failing to enforce the border and thus really making libs' heads explode. Bring on the Civil War. I do not want a civil war, man. What a fucking disaster that would be. But it is an interesting idea to see what would happen if Texas did that. Mr. Armageddon says, no comment, just thanks for the show. It's great being able to catch you live. I can no longer stay up late. Yeah, me too. Just kidding. But thanks, man. Glad to have you here. Palmyra Production says, here's to 7 more, even though been here since Vic days. Oh, that's a 7-month member chat. Thank you, Palmyra Productions. Okay, back to this story. The court will hear arguments in less than 2 weeks in a historic case that has the potential to disrupt the 2024 presidential election. The case presents the High Court with its first look at a provision of the 14th Amendment, barring some people who engaged in insurrection from holding public office. The amendment was adopted in 1868 following the Civil War. In their plea to the court, the lawyers said Trump intentionally organized and incited a violent mob to attack the United States Capitol in a desperate effort to prevent the counting of electoral votes cast against him, which this is their unironic belief. This is their unironic belief. They believe that he actually intentionally organized this riot, that he got the people there. He made it. It all happened because of Trump. And then once he did that, he incited them to attack the Capitol building, which is, I mean, it's insane, right? Like, this is insane. And this is one of the most commonly recited thing by about half the country. This is what happened. They believe it. They don't think Trump can organize anything, but that he can accomplish. They called for a decision that makes clear that what happened on January 6th was an insurrection for which Trump bears responsibility. This is funny because they don't actually, it's not actually clear, right? This insurrection was labeled as such by the civil law standard. This is a tort claim where a group of Republican voters have claimed to be injured by the Secretary of State of Colorado's actions in putting Donald Trump on the primary ballot. That's the injury that they are suing over. Importantly, they did not sue Donald Trump, although he did intervene in the case, I believe, or he impled into the case, one of those two. He got involved in the case, but they weren't suing Donald Trump. They were suing the Secretary of State of Colorado. And in doing so, they had a civil case in which they had civil evidentiary hearings and civil standards for proof, which is preponderance of the evidence, 51%. 51% towards insurrection versus 49% away. In a criminal case, to be charged with insurrection and convicted, you would, of course, have to get to proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That didn't happen here. So this says the decision that makes clear the insurrection, they haven't even shown an insurrection to any reasonable certainty. It's literally just 51% or somewhere above 51% is where they stand on it. So it's great. None of this would apply if any actual due process was followed. Concert LD says, so what you're saying, Nick, Trump needs to rebrand Truth Social as a media outlet, and then he can't be sued for defamation on anything he says. No, that's not true. Media outlets can be sued for defamation, often are. They have some protections to them, but not too much special. It's not the media, it's the lawyers. It's the lawyers and the judges. Lawyers and judges are immunized from what they say in a lot of instances. Now, me talking here on the show, I'm not immunized as a lawyer to say anything. However, if I were filing stuff in a civil complaint or a civil response, any of those pleading documents are protected from things like defamation. So I'd be acting above the law in that respect, but it's not actually above the law. That's my point. So anyway, hope that helps. The president is covered by the constitutional provision at issue, and Congress doesn't need to take action before states can apply it, the lawyers wrote, which is insane, again, to just say, well, yeah, of course, this is what the 14th Amendment meant, is just that this could happen and states could just remove a president or someone's ability to run for president. No, I mean, this is, again, it's unreal. To put this into perspective, the only way a president can be disqualified from holding further office is if he is impeached and removed and then subsequently found not suitable to hold further office. That's the only way, until Colorado just decided it in a courtroom and Maine just decided it by one person, the Maine Secretary of State. Other than that, there is no other way. And the only way that's written down that explicitly talks about a president at all is impeachment, removal, and then disqualification. Impeachment requires first the House to raise articles of impeachment. Then the Senate holds the trial, and 2/3 of the Senate have to vote to convict. And then we've determined that 2/3 of the Senate after conviction have to vote to disqualify, because it's not an automatic disqualification. So you can have two separate outcomes there. You can have removal from office but no disqualification, or removal plus disqualification. That requires two separate 2/3 votes from the Senate, which is a lot. But we're saying that, well, a state can just choose this because. By what standard? Like, what standard do they need? These are the questions that are going to go before the court. Like, well, what standard should a state apply? Like, you guys just determined it somehow. Is that the standard, that someone sues the Secretary of State and then it goes to a jury and a jury determines it, and then it gets appealed up to the Supreme Court of the state and they determine it? What's the standard? What things would disqualify a president? Anything, because insurrection can be a lot, right? Like, this one is insurrection because they rioted at the Capitol building. Does that mean everybody who's involved in or commented on or encouraged, like the Summer of Love, where Antifa people were throwing, firebombs at police cars and federal buildings, they were rioting in the streets. They actually annexed part of, was it Seattle or Portland? The Chaz. The Chaz is hilarious. But was that an insurrection? Because it seems like one. But I don't know, because what is it? And the only answer we have is that which is politically expedient. And that can't be the standard for disqualifying a president, no matter how hard these lawyers hand-wring over it. The written filing includes extensive details of Trump's actions leading up to January 6th, including his tweet on December 19th, in which he informed his followers of the planned protests on the day Congress would count the electoral votes, and wrote, "Be there, will be wild." So what? This is quintessential First Amendment speech. Be there. People are on January 6th, while they're reading the votes or whatever, I'm gonna have a speech. Be there. It'll be wild. Oh my God, it's a riot. It's a riot. Then in his speech to supporters on January 6th, the lawyers wrote, Trump lit the fuse. The brief reproduces photographs. Look at this photograph of the mayhem from that day, including one of the U.S. Capitol Police officer, Daniel Hodges, pinned in a doorway during the attack. None of that is relevant to whether or not Trump incited anything. That's the amazing part. Like, photos of the mayhem don't have anything to do with him inciting a riot. Or an insurrection. Trump's lawyers have argued that efforts to keep him off the ballot, quote, threaten to disenfranchise tens of millions of Americans and promise to unleash chaos and bedlam if other states follow Colorado's lead. I mean, chaos and bedlam is an understatement. You're really fucking close to civil war from this. And I hate saying that because I'm not Tim Pool. Right? Like, I just hate this notion that we're on the precipice. We're always on the precipice of civil war. You start banning the leading candidate from one of the parties, and it kind of looks like the other party's taking power directly from the voters and placing it into their own pockets, nominating and appointing their next king. That's what it looks like. That's a civil war, bro. You can't do that. You can't do that. You will not get people to take that one laying down, and it will be nasty. It will be horrible. But yeah, I mean, I guess do whatever you want in the search for power. The Colorado Supreme Court's 4-3 ruling, and again, it's a 4-3 ruling. This is on the narrowest grounds, all political grounds, by the way, should be reversed for any of several reasons, Trump's lawyers wrote, including that Trump did not engage in insurrection and that the presidency is not covered by the amendment. Both correct. They also contend that Congress would have to enact legislation before states can invoke the provision to keep candidates off the ballot. Correct. The justices are hearing arguments February 8th. Coming up. Trump already has won the first two GOP presidential contests, Iowa caucuses and New Hampshire's primary. Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley is Trump's sole remaining significant GOP opponent. Ouch. My write-in campaign. It hurts. It hurts. Still, both sides have said the court needs to act quickly so that voters know whether Trump is eligible to hold the presidency. Of course. And if that's the case, the Supreme Court, they have to rule that he is eligible. He hasn't been found in any way ineligible. The court is dealing with the dispute under a compressed time frame that could produce a decision before Super Tuesday on March 5th, when the largest number of delegates in a day is up for grabs, including in Colorado. A two-sentence provision in Section 3 of the 14th Amendment states that anyone who swore an oath to uphold the Constitution and then engaged in insurrection against it is no longer eligible for state or federal office. That's not what it says. That's not what it says. It's so frustrating. It is not anyone who swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. It's just at least quoted. First of all, it's not anyone. They have a specific list of offices, and then officers are generally put in there. Those specific offices include representatives, senators, delegates for the president, electors for the president, electors for the vice president, and then officers under, the United States or a state, which is interesting that they would list everything except the president. But the president's just included in the subcategory of officers. That just does not comport with reality that the president would be included in this subcategory when they're labeling everything else very specifically. And these are lower held offices than that of the presidency. And again, if you go back and put yourself in the shoes of the drafters of the 14th Amendment in 1868, I believe, 1867, maybe, they're drafting this thing. They're looking at the Constitution. They're also looking at the people who they're talking about very specifically. And the president wasn't one of them because Lincoln was in the Union. Lincoln didn't go to the South. The vice president didn't go to the South either. So they didn't have to worry about the presidency or the vice presidency being included in this on either side, either where a previous office was held or who was being elected next time. Both of those questions matter here, and neither of them list the president. After Congress passed an amnesty for most of the former Confederates, the measure targeted in 1872, the provision fell into disuse until dozens of suits were filed to keep Trump off the ballot this year. Only the one in Colorado was successful. Now, again, this is amazing because it fell into disuse. One of the potential reasons that the 14th Amendment, Section 3, fell into disuse is pretty easy to understand when you just think of it this way. It was legitimately a one-time and done provision. One and done. And that's why there are not details about how anything else needs to occur here. It's literally all these people who did this are disqualified unless Congress acts and by 2/3 of each house reinstates that person. That's it. And then poof, it's gone. I mean, it exists. It's part of the Constitution, but why is it an ongoing clause? Without any guidance in any way of how it should be formulated going forward, they just put that down. There you go. It's done. That's an easy way to understand why there are no instructions, why there's such a very specific list, why it wouldn't include a president and vice president. That is not an operative clause under the Constitution going forward. That's not the only way to read it, but it's a simple way to read it to kind of just disabuse the notion that anybody can choose to label a president an insurrectionist and then have him removed from either the office or the ballot. All right, here we go. Only the one in Colorado was successful. Trump is separately appealing to state court a ruling by Maine's Democratic Secretary of State, Shenna Bellows, that he is ineligible to appear on that state's ballot over his role in the Capitol attack. Both the Colorado Supreme Court and the Maine Secretary of State's rulings are on hold until the appeals play out. So this is just kind of more of the same. The lawyers are filing briefs to the Supreme Court, and they're just laying out that the Supreme Court needs to uphold this state court ruling, removing a presidential candidate and former president's ability to run for office, which is fucking unreal. So I was going to talk about all the Trump topics first, and then I looked at my title and I noticed E. Jean Carroll is later. So maybe we'll grab her topic by the pussy after the rumble flip in a little bit. Let's go to Texas because I love Texas right now. Right now, I am so happy with how Texas is playing out. And I don't know exactly how to do this because there's a couple, there are conflicting opinions here. So maybe we just go ahead and read through both of them. Here's what you need to know about Texas, just as a summary, I guess. Perfect. All right, I've got the two stories here. Here's what you need to know about Texas. Texas has created a program to effectively police the illegal entry of someone into Texas by labeling it a trespass. They can arrest the person. They can charge them with a criminal offense of a trespass. They can put them in jail. They can fine them. And then further, they can refer them to other law enforcement agencies to determine what is supposed to happen with them. This is, of course, critical because Texas cannot police actual immigration in the way the federal government can. They cannot conflict with federal law in their enforcement of anything else. Otherwise, supremacy takes hold. Texas has found what they believe is a workaround to the question of federal supremacy. The federal supremacy basically says that when two laws come into conflict between the states and the federal government, and it's not clearly enumerated powers of the state, then the federal government's laws win. They win that conflict between them through supremacy. If it's not specifically empowered to the states, then the federal government will win. Now, it gets really complicated how that plays out because there has to be an actual conflict of law. They have to in one way try to take over or usurp the role of the federal government. But that's not always what's happening just because two laws are related to each other. And that's the key here, is that Texas is not running an immigration policy. They're just arresting trespassers, which is not interfering with federal law. Now, federal law enforcement agents, Customs and Border Patrol, the Department of Homeland Security, they're saying Texas is interfering with their ability to do anything. Texas is like, what? What law are you enforcing that we're stopping you from enforcing? And this is a good question. This is the fight, though. So Texas has taken over this. There was a the federal government had taken this city-owned park, Shelby Park, in, I think it's called Eagle Pass, Texas. They'd taken it over, and it became a migrant processing center. It's a public park that the city of Eagle Pass owns. And the federal government's like, this is mine now. I made this. And Texas is like, what the fuck, bro? So Texas came back and took over the park and locked the feds out. And they're like, nope, not going to do it. And they put razor wire up along the border. And then the federal government went after Texas. And Texas, like, they were going to cut down the razor wire. Texas appealed to the courts and said, hey, we want to stop the federal government from cutting up our state property. That's our razor wire. They can't remove it. And Texas won that at the lower court. They just lost this at the higher court. Now, it's important to know what they lost for all these stories. And I'm sorry to give you all this background. I've been talking about it for the past several days, but not everybody sees everything. So we're almost done with the background. And then we're going to get to the legal analysis from the experts, which is always great to hear experts talk about this stuff. Because you can't. Anyway, we'll get into that. All Texas got from the lower court was an injunction enjoining the federal government from cutting the razor wire. That's it. No other questions have been asked about whether or not Texas can put razor wire along the border, whether or not the federal government has the right to, in general, cut up the razor wire. That's an undecided issue. Texas just got an injunction that says they can't come cut our razor wire. So when the federal government went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court just vacated that injunction, the only thing that happened is now the federal government can cut up the razor wire, but it doesn't prohibit Texas from doing anything. There's no order to Texas to affirmatively take any steps, or even it doesn't even restrict Texas from putting up more razor wire or any other number of barriers. It does not prevent Texas from reacquiring Shelby Park, which they've done. None of that has happened. It does not order federal agents. It doesn't even, the rescinding of the order does not even give federal agents license to get to the razor wire. That conflict still exists between Texas and the federal government. So very important to keep that in mind. Now, what we're going to do next is read these. We've got two articles. One says Greg Abbott has no power to override government constitutional law expert. This is from Newsweek, and this is where we're going to start this topic. Here we go. The Texas governor's declaration of an invasion along the southern border is legal nonsense, a constitutional law professor said. Oh, well, if they're a constitutional law professor, I mean, we got to listen to them, right? That's why they're professing. Why they're not practicing is because they're definitely super experts on it. Just like me. Red Chief 000 says, if I were Ukrainian women crossing the border, if it were Ukrainian women crossing the border, Dems would shut down the border. Well, yeah. Professor Peter Shane, a law lecturer at NYU. I've got to do it. I got to do it. Got to do it. Do you guys want to? Oh my God, of course. Here we go. Here's NYU law professor Peter Shane. Distinguished scholar in residence. Adjunct professor at law. Hello, Peter Shane. Here we go. He's a leading scholar in U.S. constitutional and administrative law with a special focus on the American presidency and the separation of powers. So he's qualified to talk on this. He's got the credentials. Peter Shane. Peter Shane. He went to Yale in 1977 to get his JD. He got his social studies bachelor's at Harvard College in 1974. So he definitely knows what's going on with all this. He was around when the Constitution was written. Okay. So here we go. Where's that? Let's see what he says about this, and let's see if he's right. Was responding to Greg Abbott's decision to overrule the federal government and declare an immigrant invasion along the U.S.-Mexico border amid an ongoing battle between Texas and President Joe Biden's administration over immigration. There were more than 2.4 million encounters at the U.S.-Mexico border during the 2023 fiscal year, up from 1.7 million in 2021, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Abbott's declaration on Wednesday invoked, I don't think it actually invoked anything, but okay, a rarely used U.S. constitutional provision that provides special powers during times of invasion. I don't agree. Actually, I don't agree with that assessment at all. So here's the thing. This is not a special power that the states have during times of invasion. This is merely the state's sovereign right to enforce its own borders. Now, the state relinquishes that right to the federal government under our Constitution. It's not a special power that the state has. It's a right that sovereigns have. It's a property right in borders. So when they use language like this, they're already skewing away from the truth of the matter, which then, of course, makes it easier to argue their position because they're not arguing in reality. There's no basis in fact or law that they're latched onto here. They're saying, well, this gives special powers in times of an invasion. No, it just merely says that they relinquish these powers except in times of invasion. They have them. It's not a special power. It's inherent. It's under the purview of the states, and they lend it to the government so long as the government is upholding their end of the bargain and preventing invasion. But when invasion occurs, they get to defend themselves. The federal government can't just allow states to be invaded. Now, you can quibble over the definition of invasion and whether or not that applies in this context, for sure. But if California, right, is there, and like Red Dawn occurs and all these giant Russian troop carrying ships land on the shores of California and they're coming in. And California is like, we want to stop these Russians from coming in and attacking us. Federal government's like, nope, we control that. California doesn't have to sit there and take it. Like, that's an invasion, pretty obvious. Uniformed troops landing on the shores by the thousands, tens of thousands, whatever it is, and then coming up there. California doesn't have to sit there. They can actually invoke the National Guard. They can utilize resources to stop this. That's what they have the power to do. But they always had that power to do that. They're just relying on the federal government to do that normally. Now, there's some caveats to this. Of course, like, the reason behind this has a lot to do with how long it took to communicate across vast distances, right? Like, going to another state back when the Constitution was drafted took a while, and they didn't have phones, like the Diablo 3 players or whatever. They didn't have any phones, so they couldn't just call up and be like, hey, yo, we need the National Guard. They had to muster troops very quickly over distance. So they had to be able to have some flexibility. Now, you can argue that that's an outdated and outmoded purpose, and that somehow nullifies the existence of this right, but it doesn't. It's not about the convenience of it. It's about the underlying right. Why they recognize the right is because of the amount of time it would take to communicate what was necessary. But that does not have any impact on the right, and it certainly doesn't somehow give the federal government more control now that it's a little easier to discuss what's going on. Go for Big Guy 911 says, why would Texas ever listen to SCOTUS? They abrogated their duty to take up any of the election, Texas versus Pennsylvania. They've abrogated their authority, in my honest opinion. Fraudulent POTUS inaction has consequences. Texas is listening to the Supreme Court. That's what we'll get to. They're not defying the Supreme Court in any way. 1 second. All right, here we go. So back to this, though. Abbott accused the White House of having broken the compact between the United States and the states. I think they have. with its immigration policy. He said the administration's failure to fulfill its duty under Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution triggered Texas's right to protect itself under Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3. Quote, this is nonsense. Governors have no power to declare anything under the U.S. Constitution, nor does the Constitution give states any legal power to countermand the exercise of federal authority, Shane told Newsweek. This is just not true. First of all, you can declare anything under anything. A declaration is merely an explanation of where you believe the authority to do an action derives. Like, if you can't declare something, why? Why can't the governor of Texas declare that there's a provision of the Constitution that justifies what he's doing? What prevents him from doing that? My astute scholarly colleague. What constitutional provision is the no declaration provision where it says governors can't declare shit? Like, where is that? Someone tell me where you're not allowed to declare. Colorado is declaring Trump unable to, ineligible for office. Are we supposed to believe that that this guy thinks that those two things don't coexist? Of course he does. Of course he thinks that Colorado can remove Trump. I actually don't know, but I have a feeling that he would say that Colorado's declaration is valid, even if they're wrong, they can declare it. But he's saying that the governors can't declare here. This is silly, of course, but the Constitution, nor does the Constitution give states any legal power to countermand the exercise of federal authority. Yeah, there's tons of it applied through the Bill of Rights, the 10th Amendment. There are powers reserved to the states, lots of them, and they can countermand federal authority when the federal government does not actually have the authority to act. The states get to do a little bit of a penis check on them, just a little flap to the tip, right? Is what he told Newsweek. On Monday, the U.S. Supreme Court gave federal agents permission to remove razor wire from the Texas-Mexico border that had been installed in Abbott's orders. They did not actually do that. Again, this is incorrect. And the precision of the language here matters critically to the issue. The Supreme Court did not give permission to remove razor wire. The Supreme Court removed the injunction preventing them from removing razor wire. Those are two different things. It's one thing if your parents say, you can have a cookie. It's another thing if your parents say, cookies exist in the house and we're not stopping you from eating them. Those are two different things. One is permissive and one is recognizing circumstances that exist. So, of course, all of this is wrong. So far, good job. In a response on Wednesday, Abbott released a letter reiterating his claim that illegal migration constitutes an invasion of Texas, and in response said he had invoked Texas's constitutional authority to defend and protect itself, which is the supreme law of the land, supersedes any federal statutes to the contrary. A constitutional provision does supersede any contrary federal statutes. Now, the question of whether or not he's right about what is being said and what statutes would be superseded, of course, or if they're contrary in the first place, that's a different question. The letter claimed that President Joe Biden violated his oath and instructed his agencies to ignore federal statutes that mandate the detention of illegal immigrants. Well, he did. It said the impact of federal policy is to illegally allow their en masse parole into the United States. It is. Responding on X, formerly Twitter, Representative Greg Cesar, a Texas Democrat, backed an earlier call by colleague Joaquin Castro for Biden to federalize the Texas National Guard. Oh, that'll be fun, right? Yeah, let's just have the federal government take over the Texas National Guard because they don't like Texas defending its own border. I mean, can they? Maybe. I think they actually probably can. The last time the president of the United States federalized a state's National Guard was in Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama. I think they're going to talk about that in a minute, maybe, but or Arkansas, sorry, not Alabama. Little Rock, banging in Little Rock. They do talk about it in just a second. Just Joy says, seriously, love your new blouse. Oh, thank you, Just Joy. Dagnar D says, Texas should let feds cut wire and then arrest them for destruction of state property. They would not be able to arrest the feds for destruction of state property in this case. They would not have jurisdiction over the federal agents doing that. I believe. So that's a weird one. Fire PA 498 says, when the Continental Congress declared the colonies should be separate from the king, that was totally within the scope of their powers from the king, right? God, these idiots fail to realize communities will protect themselves when endangered. It's just natural. And it is natural rights. I mean, that's what we're talking about. The mild one says, welcome back to the stream, Milo's Tea. Hey, Milo's says, thank you. Where are we? Here we go. Anders 182 says, hey, Nick, usually a replay watcher. Nice to see the occasional day show. Just wanted to say it's been cool hearing about you hanging with the Imholtz lately. Steel Toe is hilarious. Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun getting to know them. It's really cool to have people who are like kind of close by that you can hang out with that also live in this internet world, because most of my online friend community is 1,000 miles away at any point. So here we go. Back to this article. Greg Abbott has continued to use political stunts and inflammatory language to advance his own agenda, violating the Constitution and endangering both U.S. citizens and asylum seekers. Someone tell me where Greg Abbott has violated the Constitution in this regard, and how is he endangering U.S. citizens by trying to keep illegal immigrants out? Abbott is following the Donald Trump playbook, make immigration harder and more dangerous. So asylum seekers, yes. Yeah, actually, that is the playbook. Make immigration harder and more dangerous. Wait, caveat. Illegal immigration harder and more dangerous. Yes. So asylum seekers are pushed into the hands of cartels and the system remains broken. Now, this is, again, an appeal to the heartstrings of the vast, vast minority of illegal immigrants. Asylum seekers are a tiny percentage of illegal immigrants, and you're not pushing them into the hands of cartels. Asylum seekers can walk up to the border, the regular border, and demand asylum. They can do that. They can just do that. They don't have to illegally enter all the way without consent while she's crying. They don't have to. They can just go up and they can request asylum, asylee status. They're not pushed in the hands of cartels. But this is the whole thing. It's like, oh, you're sending them to the cartels. Well, no, you guys empower the cartels with your shitty border policy. I agree with Joaquin Castro. If Abbott is defying yesterday's Supreme Court ruling, he's not. President Biden needs to establish sole federal control over the National Guard. Well, since this is an if-then statement, very simple to say, well, nope, that's not happening. He's not defying the Supreme Court ruling. The Supreme Court ruling says absolutely nothing about what Abbott can and can't do. Newsweek reached out to Abbott's office by email on Thursday for comment. The National Guard in individual states ordinarily falls under the control of their respective governors, but they can be federalized. In 1957, President Dwight Eisenhower's administration federalized the Arkansas National Guard after Governor Orville Faubus ordered them to prevent black students from attending Little Rock Central High School. During the segregation era, under federal control, the Arkansas National Guard, together with federal troops from the 101st Airborne Division, ensured that the students were able to attend the school. So here we go. The fairness meter. Wait. Hold us accountable and submit your rating of this article on the meter. Here we go. Unfair, left-leaning, all the way. No, I want it down farther. I'll confirm my selection. Most readers rated this article center and fair. Okay. Look, I mean, only every issue that the author of the article addressed was wrong. And that's the critical thing. It's not the people they're quoting that are wrong. It's the author of the article is wrong on every issue, and it all skews left. But hey, it's center and fair. They just literally don't know. They have no idea. Elijah Fire says totally different situation, by the way. Yes. Little Rock, Arkansas is a completely different situation in 1957. It's following Brown versus Board. There's a Supreme Court order saying that there can be no more segregation in schools. Some states were defying that. That is an open defiance. This one, Greg Abbott is following the Supreme Court's ruling, not acting in defiance of it. With that said, guys, we are going to get to the other side of that. A different expert is going to talk about how Greg Abbott is not being a fuck up in this scenario, but we're going to do that after the Rumble flip and a brief bathroom break. All right, guys, we're going to hit over to Rumble. got a 25-second little musical ditty to play for you guys. And after that, we'll be Rumble exclusive. I'll go to the bathroom real quick, come right back. We'll keep this show going. If you want to watch on Rumble, please click the link that is pinned in the chat section on YouTube or is in the YouTube description. Pop over to Rumble with us, hang out with us over there, and we will continue the show. Thank you all for watching on an errant and odd Saturday daytime stream. There may be some more daytime streams coming in the future, and hopefully some of them will involve Andrew Branca, a good friend of mine who I haven't talked to in way too long. All right, guys, I will catch you over on Rumble. Let's get a move on. See you there. Peace. Peace.